Welcome, everybody, to the Minions of the Zoo Tuesday edition. I'm your keeper, Skep, Tock, and with me I have Minions Prospero
Hello.
and the Harry Channel.
Good evening.
Looks like it's a three-horse show tonight. Blind Press said that she wasn't feeling up to it. And, I told her to go get in a bathtub and get loaded and have a good night's sleep and see if she was feeling better tomorrow. So
tell her to NyQuil and sauna her way to health. Is that what?
Exactly. Smoke a bong, have a little NyQuil, and go to sleep. And call me in the morning. So anyway, we hope she's feeling better. And Prospero, how was your day today?
It was lovely. It was a beautiful day. I didn't accomplish a whole hell of a lot, but I certainly enjoyed peak spring. This block has a fair number of blooming trees on it, pink dogwoods and the like, and azaleas are beginning to make themselves known. So it's also what's known as yellow season here, which means the pollen is in full throat.
I was going to say, I know what that means.
Yeah, and so it's sprinkled a little bit this morning just to make sure that all the cars look like they have the pox.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that time of year. Clouds of pollen when the wind kicks up. It's kind of lovely because the pines that are around here will also just basically, they'll explode pollen directly in your face like something out of Star Trek.
Interesting fun fact about Virginia. It has one of the most diverse pollen sets of pollen. It has different sets of pollen, different kinds of pollen from many different kinds of plants. And there are I was actually talking with my stepdaughter's pulmonologist. She has some lung problems, and he was talking about some of the southeastern states, and he was talking about North Carolina, and he said Virginia and that area, they just have such a diversity of stuff. There are people who just can't live in that state. He said there are people who are literally allergic to living in North Carolina, and just because there's something you're going to be allergic to.
Richmond
if you have some sensitivity.
Richmond is listed as the worst city.
Is it really?
Yeah, we won this year. Durham actually came in for top 50 cities. Durham, North Carolina actually came in 50th. And I was thinking, I said, well, that's because the mills, the mill works in Durham, because it was such an industrial town. All the trees are gone. That's not true. Duke is lovely. But Richmond's pretty awful. If you're sensitive to, if you're allergic, it's terrible for people.
Do you know what the number one worst city for pollen is in the United States? This is from the AAFA. Oh, these are the that's actually a professional association of allergists. Number one, they have listed as Scranton, Pennsylvania.
I know a couple of places in Texas are pretty rough.
McAllen, Texas is third. Wichita, Kansas is second. Richmond, Virginia is fourth. San Antonio is fifth. Oklahoma City is sixth. Hartford is seventh. Buffalo, eighth. Ninth is New Haven. 10th, Albany, New York. And then Connecticut, Massachusetts, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio. Interesting. El Paso, again, Miami, Des Moines, Las Vegas, and Memphis. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
these are America's top allergy capitals. That's what they
it's kind of dubious honor to be in the top 5 there, but it's just something that we go through, and you learn things like with a swimming pool. We learn never to open it too early. because the pollen alone would choke the DE filter. Just, little tricks of the trade of living around here. You don't wash your car during the latter part of, well, really, you stop mid-March and you don't wash your car till mid-May probably, because there's no point in doing it.
Yeah.
And there are some cars out there that I swear to God, the pollen is what is holding the car together.
I've had a car actually that looked like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's once you have an older car, it's pretty spectacular. I had silver cars for a long time, and it wasn't nearly as disgusting. My car is a kind of a cornflower blue now, and it's getting that really kind of pukey, greenish cast to it between the yellow green of the pollen and the blue, but it's a color that Crayola hasn't added to their.
If you ever live on an island in the middle of a bay, and that island is just predominantly eucalyptus trees, you find out something about eucalyptus trees, and that is that they put sap on your car. They secretly squirt it on at night, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And
they have spray bottles that they hide beneath their leaves.
That's the goddamnest stuff to try and get off your car. I spent a lot of time working on my car, trying to keep the sap off it when I lived on Yorba Buena Island.
Mm-hmm.
We have some trees that are pretty vulgar about sap. Then, of course, we have some. I'll never forget. We were going to meet up with a bunch of Cree's co-workers after work at a now gone but not forgotten barbecue place in town, and they frequently invite spouses to come and join. And I drove into the parking lot and I saw one of Cree's co-workers' cars. I recognized it by its license plate, but otherwise it looked like a herd of flying cows. It had loose boughs over the car. It was absolutely covered in bird shit. And it's because he had parked near the then headquarters along one of the side streets that had nothing but berry-bearing trees. And the birds had been in the trees, feasting on the berries and relieving themselves all over his car. So it was just this white and purple splotched Mercedes. You could barely make out the word compressor on the back.
It's the Jackson Pollock edition.
Yes, it was spectacular. It was just, I just sat and goggled for a bit in the parking lot because this was before phone cameras, because otherwise I would have a picture of that. Other than that, I am well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well for an old out of shape man, but
you're in better shape than I am. Portanoiculus, trust me.
You work out a fair amount, Skep. You can't be in that bad a shape.
I've
How many miles did you hike the other day?
Well, I did 8 the other day. That was
I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I am actually have a little bit of an overuse injury, just repetitive use injury. Unfortunately, it's in my hip.
Hmm.
I actually had to sit out today. I did not get my 4 miles in today, and I do not feel right.
Yeah, so, it's hard to when you've established a routine to sit there and just go, now what?
Well, and the dog is like going, time for the walk, Dad.
Yeah.
And she's a healthy young puppy, and 4 miles is nothing for her. So anyway, I'm sitting it out today. Not really feeling up to par physically, but I'll be out hitting it tomorrow. In other cool news, if the stream ends suddenly, it's because we're having another tornado tonight here in Midlothian. So I actually think the tornado watch may be over by now. I think the
It
time
kind of
has
looked like
passed.
that line may have passed.
Yeah.
I saw the radar. How are you doing, Harry?
Well, it's as long as it doesn't end like the end of the movie Failsafe, it'll be fine.
Oh shit! Fuck! Don't say things like that.
Man, I saw that movie. That movie just freaked me out when I was a kid. That movie gave me nightmares.
I love that movie. Oh,
it's a good movie, and it's Henry Fonda. Man, he as bad as he was at making daughters, he was really good at pretty much everything else.
Oh, that movie watches well today. That movie holds up today as a period piece.
Did you ever see the teleplay that they did in the 90s?
Yes.
It was actually quite, despite it being it was something Clooney had wanted to do. It was pretty well done, I thought.
Yeah. I was dreading it because I just,
they pretty much stuck to the story, the script.
No, it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It didn't add much. I guess I wanted it to add something. I don't know what I was looking for, but
it's kind of a ballsy thing to do at that time, to do one of the live productions like that. That was before NBC started doing we're doing the live production of this Broadway musical thing. Well, Kay, why don't you just put cameras in a theater and let us watch the actual musical?
Well, I'm not sure how I feel about modern remakes on Shakespeare. I feel a bit conflicted. I mean, there was an episode of Star Trek that was basically The Tempest. I mean, the original series, the one that matters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's though I don't really mean the sort of do an homage to the story type of thing. But I mean, when you literally try to make a modern version of it, or a modern setting, but you stick with the original dialogue. So there was a version of Coriolanus that was made a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's been in my Netflix queue forever because I am very conflicted about whether I even want to watch it. So I feel like I should watch it, but I just don't get around to it. And I guess Joss Whedon did, was it Much Ado About Nothing? Or something similar to that. And that looked interesting. Like I said, I am genuinely conflicted. This isn't just a bit that I'm doing. I honestly really enjoy Shakespeare, and I think it does adapt itself really well. But at the same time, the part of me, the little angel that sits on my shoulder and is a purist and a pedant, doesn't want to let me enjoy it. Because there's this little voice that just says, just watch the original thing. I think that little voice should just shut up. I think actually Shakespeare adapts reasonably well, much the way that it adapts to German. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I just love the fact that out damn spot translates to Weg der Dante Fleck. That's just beautiful. No. Yeah, the Germans basically want to adopt Shakespeare. If they could get away with it, they would just say, he's ours. He was secretly German.
They're going to have to be content with Goethe.
Yeah, the Germans would never write the Scottish play. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen.
I keep trying to... I mean, it's kind of a trope, the whole thing about Germans not having a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go on YouTube and dig up clips from German, in air quotes, comedy shows. And they really are pretty terrible. Mm-hmm. With the exception of just one or two German comedians who are funny as hell. I think they have all of the funny for the German people, just like in a few people. They've condensed it into just like 5 performers, maybe. I don't think it's just a question of me not getting it. I mean, I don't think it comes naturally to them, but they feel like they should at least try. It's a very Teutonic sort of approach to it.
Yes.
We know we're bad at it, but we must at least try and put on a brave effort.
They're good at bureaucracy. They're very, very good at creating managers and bureaucrats. And comedy just is not that kind of well, I mean, to watch things that are being put out by Hollywood now looks like perhaps they've hired some Germans. Ha ha ha! Is this not funny? Laugh, you know. And it's like, no, I won't, because it's not funny.
No. But yeah, I don't see enough movies. I think if I'm going to watch movies, I really do need to go back and watch some of the classics. Like I said, I haven't seen Chinatown. I really want to watch
You've not seen Chinatown?
I have not seen Chinatown. I have not seen a number of sort of the noir type things, you know, with Stoner, Robert Mitchum, Jane Greer, all those people. I really want to go back and see a lot of those.
Have you seen Nashville?
Nope.
That's another one that you need to see just to be able to say, I saw it. Because most people who see Nashville say, I'm glad I saw it. I never want to see it again.
Is that the sequel to Roadhouse?
Ah.
No, it's about life in the country music business.
Well, that is sort of a popular sort of theme. The idea of there's the lone guy who's running from something. He finally finds a place where he can find a moment of peace. And then all hell breaks loose, and he has to risk the peace and harmony that he's found in order to do the right thing. You know, rinse, lather, repeat. How many movies follow that theme?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a trope. It's a common trope.
The reluctant hero trope, frequently too. There are ways of framing stories that are borderline archetypal, that make them more unique, or, you know, one slightly better than the other. But, you know, when you break it down, how many really strong literary themes are there to work with that you can translate decently to film? You're going to see a lot of derivative material. It's just whether someone can put a different perspective on it.
Well, part of the problem with taking written material and putting it in, you know, some kind of other entertainment format, you know, be it a play or a TV show or a miniseries or docudrama or whatever it happens to be, a lot of it is finding the right vehicle to show it off. You know,
Yes.
For example, one of the great examples of this, they were so smart to not make the movie The Stand. The Stand has too much material in it to be in a movie that's not 14 hours long. So they made a 14-hour long miniseries out of it. And it was, to my way of thinking, very, very well done. And a lot of the reason for that is, you know, not the brilliance of the story, although I also happen to just love that story, but it really was that the miniseries was exactly the right vehicle for conveying all the material that exists in Stephen King's book.
Yeah,
and
that's the problem with making certain things, like you said. You either have to edit it so severely, or you need to make a series of movies. Or
The Hobbit should have probably been you could have made The Hobbit in one movie.
Yes.
You can make The Hobbit in one movie. You have to leave out Bjorn. You have to leave out Bjorn, and you have to leave out the spiders. So you're going to have to. That was the way that I had it figured out, that you could make a 4-hour movie of The Hobbit if you just left out a couple of the significant time-wasting subplots that don't really do anything. Bjorn's this cool guy who lives out in the weeds, and he helps travelers sometimes. Okay, he's gone. Yeah, he never does anything else. So, and the same thing with the spiders. It was just, a plot device to give his characters something to do.
Fill out page count on the Hobbit.
So pretty much, it's time for Bilbo to get in trouble and hack his way through the spider webs with his new sword and show how magical it was. And he actually used it as a good plot device, but it isn't necessary. Anyway, I don't know why I got off any talk about that, but at any rate, Harry, what have you been doing for fun?
Fun? Oh God, none of that. No, until I file my Form 5500 for my 401k and a bunch of other crap, there isn't going to be any fun.
You've delayed it to the last moment of ability to put it off.
I've actually been a bit busy, but yes, I've I've delayed it. I have to file that one, and then I'll file an extension for everything else. But I ran across a something terrible. This thing right here. I think you can see it well enough. The part I have highlighted. It's the Toronto School Board Conference for 2SL GBT QIAP plus students. I was thinking
Two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trinary, queer, idiot, aggravated pedophile plus students. And
no, Skep, you're not taking this seriously. I looked up what the definition is. It's two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual. Now, two-spirit makes sense that it's 2S because it's two spirits, so it gets two letters.
Yes,
so 2S, two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual. While the plus stands for other ways individuals express their gender and sexuality outside heteronormativity and the gender binary. And that's one to grow on.
Good Christ.
This seems to be an acronym that's only used by Canadians. They've got their own special version of LGBTQIAPP, whatever.
Plus.
There has to be a way to pronounce it. Let's take a look at this. Tusul Gibbet Quiap plus.
It just flows right off the tongue.
It actually sounds like something out of Dune.
Yeah, it's the
Bene Gesserit.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something of theirs.
Oh, it sounds like the
Kwisatz Haderach,
Yeah, or Shout Out Mapes, the housekeeper.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Because you're right, Prospero.
The Ursat's Cadillac. That's my favorite take on it. He truly is the Ursat's Cadillac.
That's right.
That ending of that movie was so dreadful. I know you two like it, but I swear to God.
Elvis, my mama real sick.
Oh my God.
I was we can make this go away. Go back to regular thing, and can you not make me be full screen? Thank you. I was watching a documentary series, and it was this guy I've seen before, Rick Stein. He's an English cook. He does these travel log things where he goes around the world and eats food and gets happy about it. And he did the inevitable thing that English people seem to like to do once they have enough money and time and the ability to do it, which is to go to the American South and listen to the blues and eat food, because it seems to be kind of a pilgrimage for people like that. So in the first episode, after going to India and Cambodia and all these other places he's gone to, he goes to Mississippi into the Delta, and it opens up with him in this blues, basically this place where they're just playing the blues, one of those smoky, dingy barbecue places with the blues playing.
Yeah,
and he sits down after the 30 seconds of music that plays and talks to the guy who's performing it. And it's an old black guy, and he's asking about people. Do they embrace the blues? Do the younger people do? And this is this guy's comment. He basically said that the younger black folks in America don't seem to like the blues that much. And it's basically, white folks that seem to be still going nuts over it. Like, Hugh Laurie going in and doing his version of the blues. And I started thinking about it and go, okay, does this seem like a true statement to you? And I started thinking, in terms of blues that are newer, I started thinking Susan Tedeschi, Paul Butterworth, North Mississippi All-Stars. And those are very much kind of mixed, right? It's a mixture of different people in those groups. But there's an awful lot of white folks that seem to be really embracing the blues still to this day. Do you think that this guy, this thesis that this guy came up with, do you think it's actually true? Because if so, it seems kind of sad, and it almost makes me feel a little like I'm appropriating something. I know it's a zero-sum game, right? It's not like I'm taking anything from somebody else that they can't enjoy.
Exactly.
But how did we just kind of like cross, in the night and end up in different places? Because I have no interest in urban poetry, to put it bluntly. And I know lots and lots of generally pasty white folks who think the blues are fantastic, and Asian folks and lots of other people. The blues seems to be something that a lot of different people enjoy. Not to say that there aren't lots of young white kids who enjoy rap. I know firsthand that that's definitely true. But it would be a shame if the blues kind of wasn't there for every single people. It would be a shame if people are turning their backs on it. Because it's an important part of I think, African-American heritage, isn't it?
Well, it is. There is the blues and there is the blues. Okay, there was the blues that came out of the Deep South. That was the province of predominantly black musicians, and the Robert Johnson type, classical, deep Southern black blues sound. But it has been picked up by other musical people from other musical traditions and adapted to so many subgenres of the blues. There are all kinds of flavors of the blues, and what he may have been talking about was the real authentic, what you're talking about, smoky barbecue joint and a guy with an old beat up guitar in the corner, just
like Muddy Waters and that kind of thing.
Exactly, Lightning Hopkins, just
as opposed to Johnny Otis.
Right, exactly. And that is something that modern kids look today and are you kidding? I wouldn't even sample that for my beats, man. So they wouldn't even look twice at that. And I think that may be what the guy was experiencing. But in terms of popularity and celebration of the blues and the heritage of blues and where blues came from and all the different permutations of it, I think it's more popular than ever. I see the influence all through everything except modern day top 40 pop, which is all that auto-tune nonsense, and four songwriters in the world writing all the tunes.
Yeah,
and three of them are Taylor Swift.
Well, music is a great unifier, right? So even back when America had some pretty obvious and undeniable problems with race relations, there were still plenty of, pasty white folks who would venture into Spanish Harlem to, take in shows at places like the Cotton Club. And I can't help but think that didn't help in some way to get people to look at the humanity of these other people who they might not see very much of otherwise because of the clear classism
it wasn't all blues that they went to see. In Harlem, that was a big jazz center.
Well, it was
a lot of jazz.
It was probably more jazz than blues.
Basie and Ellington, and and it was huge numbers of uptowners. downtowners would come to Uptown to
Right.
listen to their music, because the big band era that they were kind of entering was, I don't want to say infesting, but it was, because it was spreading everywhere through the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the embrasure of particular styles of music by people like Benny Goodman. And Goodman in particular, because he integrated his band at a time where that was problematic in certain areas. The of course, you got the white people to go to Harlem. I mean, I grew up utterly naive to some extent musically of, race relations having anything to do with anything, because of my parents being born when they were, and they were big band fans. So I grew up with Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw and Glenn Miller and Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Ella Fitzgerald and these people. So it was kind of peculiar to me to realize that most of my cohort didn't know who I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. But music should not be racialized.
No, it should not be.
In a lot of ways, I think these performers were sort of, it's sort of like brand ambassadors in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Back before things changed a lot in the 1960s.
Yes.
And later in the 70s. I think
constant exposure softens people to the idea of change.
And talent wins people over pretty quickly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, somebody was not going to tell Lionel Hampton to sit on the back of the bus after they heard him play vibraphone. They were actually going to call a cab for him. That you get exposure is always a great way to diminish prejudice. Of all kinds.
Yeah. Well,
both racial and artisty kinds of prejudice, because there are people that will turn their nose up at country music, yet never attend any form of country music festival or anything like that. Mix and mingle with the people, see what life is like in the world of country music, sample stuff from the 30s through the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up with this, it's all about blah, 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 and I hate it. Well, you haven't listened to any of it, so there's no way for you to hate it. Your bigotry is predicated on ignorance, as is so much bigotry.
Well, things that are kind of avant-garde can be pretty inaccessible.
Yes, they can. Philip Glass.
And there are people that do well, and also Patricia Barber from sort of the Chicago jazz school. She's very, very good, and she has stuff that's very easy to get into, but it gets a little difficult even for me. Sometimes some of that stuff, and I think a lot of the more avant-garde stuff is out of reach. But the majority of most kinds of music, as long as you're still working in kind of a Western music system, you're not dealing with 5-note scales or something crazy like that, is probably within most people's reach if they give it a chance.
Yeah, it will also depend on how interested they are in the subject matter. It's a bit like art or theater, like you mentioned. Some people, you can get them to go to musicals all day long, but you're not going to get them to go to Ibsen's Dollhouse. Is there singing? No, I'm not going. You know what I mean? Because
is there depression?
Yes, it's Ibsen. What were you thinking?
Will you want to kill yourself after the play? Yes.
Well, not as badly as you might after others, but it's
not as bad as the Cherry Orchard.
That's what I was thinking of. But it's
it's not as bad as Chekhov, but it's
I was thinking
depressing.
Chekhov was just the Russians are so goddamn bleak.
Yeah.
That it's just And once I realized that an overarching genre is bleak or annoying, I do tend to kind of just not bother to sample anymore. It's hopefully
There's so many good things out there that you can like.
I have only so many hours in my life.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
And if my choice is, between X and Zebra, and I happen to like zebras, I'm going to go to see Zebra.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I find myself having to make decisions about what I'm going to try, because one of the things that I've always tried to do is staying current is to continue to try new things. And I've tried to listen to things like K-pop, for example, with an open mind, or even some of the popular American pop music. I'm sorry, right now I just think it's garbage music. It's just crap, that inoffensive, sugary crap that we kind of went through that. Do you remember a group called the 1910 Fruit Gum Company?
Vaguely.
They put out a thing. They were typical of something called bubblegum rock.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the Archies, for example,
yes,
which was a group that did not even exist.
Oh,
it was just a bunch of studio musicians.
You remember the song from the 70s, Billy Don't Be a Hero?
That was Bo Haywood and his band.
But there were a lot of those little oh God, what was the song? Back when my hair was short, I was a White Sox sport, wore pointed shoes and big pants. It was that kind of stuff, was that very bubblegum pop, bubblegum rock stuff that was out.
Sugar.
Oh,
honey,
that, yeah. Everything
exactly.
sounded like it belonged in a Scooby-Doo movie.
Right.
It was
real simple, simple melodies about
catchy tunes.
Itsy Bitsy Spider goes up the water spout.
Well, Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, almost like some of the goofball novelty songs that existed. They're kind of fun in retrospect.
I had a friend who used to sing that song. It wasn't Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, and he sang it
that she wore for the first time. Really?
It was, yeah.
That must have been hilarious. That had to be hilarious.
Yeah, it was. It was alarming, actually, but yeah, he was my little Flemish friend.
That's when you're like, dude, now do Yellowbird. See, the faux Jamaican rush that went on. It sounds like an island song. Woohoo!
Yeah, and America thought it fell in love with the Rastafarians. When
Banana Boat song comes out and they all think they understand it. Yeah,
they all think, oh, Rasta.
No.
No,
cute little peppy song.
Don't talk to me about Rasta. And I actually like the rhythms of Rasta music. I really do kind of like that easygoing boom.
Yeah,
it's just nonsense, simple stuff, but I find it oddly soothing.
Well, some things like that, it depends on what you're trying to garner from music at the time.
Yeah,
sometimes it's energy.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
You can vacuum a living room pretty comfortably to sugar. Because you're gonna
no.
But what I'm saying.
I can't.
I just can't believe the loveliness of loving you. I just can't
kill me.
Yeah, but do. It's that kind of peppy bounce, but it's what I kind of consider exercise music.
Yeah.
As opposed to things which can be great exercise music as well as listening pleasure. like Earth, Wind, and Fire,
disco,
which were insanely popular.
Well, yeah, disco was made for, uh,
dancing
aerobics classes. Yeah.
I mean, and it was a form of line dancing in
Yeah, it kind of was.
many cases. Well, the hustle certainly was.
Yeah.
And yes, I knew how to do the hustle. Yes, I went to dances and danced the hustle. I also learned a stupid dance to Sugar Sugar, because that was the kind of stuff they'd make us do in gym class, or Tony Orlando's and Dawn's Knock 3 Times. And it was just like, or tie a yellow ribbon around her neck.
Yeah.
Neck and pull is how we sang it. It's just every generation has like really great songs butting directly up against what the hell songs. There's some amazing pop standards, big band music, particularly vocal stuff done. And then you have down in a meadow by an itty bitty pool swam 3 little fishies and the mama fishy too. But people of note made hits with like, oops, there goes another rubber tree plant,
Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
Oh, well, that was absolutely amazing. You want to talk about somebody capitalizing on the ability.
How about Mary Dotes and Dosey Dotes and Little
Anseed Ivy? All the songs you teach little kids.
Mm-hmm.
A Kiddle-Dee-Ivy too, because I kept wondering what a Kiddle-Dee-Ivy was.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like,
Ivy too.
A kid will eat ivy too, wouldn't you? Yeah, I never sang that when I was trying to murder the English ivy growing around this house.
So, serious, slightly serious shift. There's a lot of music that stands up over time, and then there's a lot of stuff, music and art, that doesn't. That's clearly more of a fad. And when you're in the moment, sometimes it's not easy to tell which one is which.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that a lot of stuff that people consume has a lot more to do with social signaling than actual enjoyment.
Oh,
it's like the kind of thing that there's things you would listen to if nobody else in the world existed and you had access to all of the world's stuff. And then there's the stuff you listen to just because everybody else is listening to it. And you need to be identifiable as one of the right kind of people who reads the right kind of things and listens to the right kind of things. I mean, how many books have people read just so that they can go to a cocktail party and talk about some stupid book?
Yeah.
That they didn't enjoy in any way, shape, or form.
Have you ever done that, Harry?
I have not ever done that.
I've not ever done that. How about you, Prospero?
As far as sampling things from culture in order to fit in?
No, reading a book before.
Oh, good God, no.
Cocktail party.
No.
Well, you know the kind of people I'm talking about.
No, because
Yes.
I would listen to what they would talk about and I would give it a try. And then after I read a couple of the books by that person, I would be like, I hope I never have to say anything to anybody about this book. Ann Tyler comes to mind.
Well, I would imagine you can read about a paragraph of almost any writer and know whether you want to read more of that person.
Not always. Not always, especially when I was sampling a whole lot of different literature to see why people were so fond of it. I had developed a strong aversion to popular culture working in retail because you get hammered retail books. You get hammered senseless with requests and nonsense over bestsellers. And so it would be like, I don't want to read that. Everybody in the world is reading it, and the customers who are coming in and asking for it are annoying cunts. So I don't want to be reading what they're reading.
I was really talking about more from the standpoint of, if you pick up a book you've never seen before and read,
maybe
a page of that,
yeah,
can't you tell from that person's style whether or not you want to read more of that?
Usually.
I always can. Usually,
Yeah.
it's within a paragraph.
I don't
I just look for certain
tells.
and well, it's probably because there's so many things that actually veto authors for me, and there are authors people like uh, the guy who wrote Games of Thrones, George R. R. Martin.
Mhm.
People like him. He does some things that are absolutely unacceptable to me, and he's. I also don't think he's technically that good a writer. I don't think he's good at transition. I don't think he's good at continuity. He's not good at plot hooks. He tends to cover up his mistakes with sudden death of major characters.
Yeah, two men run into a
Mhm.
room with a gun.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
yeah.
But I could tell in just reading a page of his writing that he was not the kind of writer I would enjoy. I still attempted to attack the beginning of some tome he wrote, not Game of Thrones, but something else, and it just was. I was bored out of my mind.
Yeah. There have been books that I have been a little worried about that
Yeah,
have turned out to be okay.
like what?
Dune.
Oh, really?
Well,
You were worried about Dune?
it was the terminology and my constantly having to reference the glossary.
Oh, okay. Fair
But
enough.
that was very early on. I've told people, I said, if you have the patience for 50 pages, after which you won't be using the glossary anymore, because there will have been enough repetition. Both of you are looking up, now tell me who they are again, kind of thing. And it also depends on how much time you have, whether you're going to sit and read 100 pages at a time.
Herbert was very skillful about the way he wrote the first part of Dune. You really get he builds his world very well.
Yes, he does.
Very efficiently.
But, when you first start off and you're encountering some, oh dear, there's an entire language attached here. How dense is this going to be? Am I going to be able to read this for enjoyment as well as edification? Because I don't always want to be edified, by the way. I'd like to be entertained when I'm reading.
Yeah.
I know that the world is a shitty place. Thanks. I don't need your angst dribbling all over it's those kinds of, there's some novels, a fair number of women writers that are just like, apparently there's a large number of women readers who just absolutely love wallowing in the misery of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, because I think, as we all have at one point in our life, I've been miserable and I didn't enjoy being miserable. And why would I want to revisit that hollow, get up and put one foot in front of the other every day feeling that goes along with certain kinds of misery?
Mhm.
Thanks, but no thanks. I've actually lived the emotion. I don't need to relive it.
Well, there are approximately 16,000 unique words in Moby Dick.
Cool.
About 5,000 of them are a mixture of common given names, plurals, infinitives, gerunds, and or adjectival, adverbial forms of root words.
Thank
you can tell I am reading a thing. The point being that there's a pretty huge glossary that goes with something like Moby Dick.
Yes.
And I think Moby Dick is a lot less accessible than Dune.
Oh, I never read Moby Dick. I started Billy Budd and fortunately got thrown out of the English class I was in.
Sweet.
You wouldn't have liked the ending.
No, I knew I wasn't going to like any of it because I'd already read Melville's Bartleby the Scrivener and wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They're writers that I just find utterly inaccessible, and Melville falls in that category. Then there are writers that I find extremely accessible, but intensely annoying, and that's the category that Hemingway falls into. he just annoys me. It just
Hemingway was not as great a writer as Hemingway thought Hemingway was.
Oh, no shit. F. Scott Fitzgerald is a much more entertaining writer and much more clear.
Well, much less less ruled by the insane voices in his head too than fucking Hemingway.
Really, and both of them are, like legendary dipsos.
Yeah, yeah. He was a drunk, but he also had a giant penis-shaped god in his brain.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh my God. Now there are things. The shorter the Hemingway work, the better it is. I think. I maintain.
Yeah, I especially like it when he wrote nothing.
Yeah, I maintain that you can read the short story, A Short Happy Life of Francis Macomber, and recognize that there was talent there. It just refused to be nurtured.
I don't know. He's just one of the most overrated writers.
Faulkner despised his writing, and it's funny because I don't care for Faulkner either.
Yeah, Faulkner was overrated too, by the way.
Faulkner
just wrote in a way that nobody could understand, so they thought they better appreciate him. I think he was actually a con man, largely.
I love telling people, give A Rose for Miss Emily a read.
Well, no. Let me just say this about that. I'm not dissing the stream of consciousness thing completely. I am a big fan of somebody like Virginia Woolf. Read her diaries. Read that personal, engaging way that she just
spreads her insanity across the page.
Yeah, well, yeah, and even though she's, read her suicide note from her diary. The last thing she ever wrote. The love note to her husband. It just is. Even that was engaging. She's one of the most personal writers, and yet she was very much in the stream of consciousness. So certainly bought into it at the time. It was very new then.
I just, there are things that I read that I appreciated for the style in which they were written, where I don't particularly care for the author. John Fowles is an example. He wrote The French Lieutenant's Woman, The Collector.
Yeah, French Lieutenant's Woman.
I've read that. I've read The
Trying to formulate that title in my brain. Yeah, I haven't thought about that name in a long time.
I've read that and The Collector, and that's a very strange book.
Oh, The Collector.
Yeah, it's right. And I read The Magus, which is considerably longer. It's a lot of, I don't know any other way to describe it other than magical realism. Have you read Gabriel Garcia Lorca's 100 Years of Solitude?
No. Heavens no.
Yeah. Well,
sounds uplifting.
Oh Jesus. I'd read that, and so I was familiar. I've read it for a Latin American history class, believe it or not. It's actually, at least I didn't have to read it in Spanish. But it's magical realism is very peculiar when you're reading it, because you're never entirely sure whether you're in present time or memory or imagined. So it can be kind of difficult to wade through. It's a little too obvious a device for my taste. You kind of hate it, at least I kind of hate it, when authors are engaged in brickbatting you with the cleverness of their literary devices.
Yeah, referring to some supernatural phenomenon just kind of offhand.
Or shifting between reality and dream and utter imagination and delusion,
and not telling you,
and not giving you
taking place.
Really not giving you at least a bit of an Easter egg about what's going on,
or just a clue.
Yeah,
just something.
And maybe I'm terrible at reading for detail, because there are things that I have missed in stories. things that I was told in prefaces that I promptly forgot as I went blasting through the story. Because prefaces were always the annoying thing that was stood between me and the story. I did that with McCaffrey, by the way.
Anne McCaffrey?
Yes. I didn't really read the prologue all that carefully, or I read it and then was interrupted and then went back to reading the novel and then read through the entire Dragon series, get to the end of, because I read the Harper Hall trilogy before I read White Dragon. So I'm still utterly immersed, okay? And then I'm reading White Dragon, and it's like, oh, well, derp, derpity derp, derp, derp.
I wish I'd known this when I was reading Harper Hall.
Well, I told you to read Harper Hall before reading White Dragon.
Yeah, but I had already read White Dragon.
You did not. I told you before you read the McCaffrey. You just didn't listen to me.
I think you told me after. Well, it doesn't matter. No one cares.
I reminded you that I told you afterwards. I told you so.
Yeah, you probably told me so.
But anyhow, it does make White Dragon more enjoyable, I think, and it makes Harper Hall more enjoyable to read them.
I liked reading Harper Hall afterwards because I knew how dragons worked, and I knew, I understood the environment of that world better. And Harper Hall is all about building that world out.
Yes, and
showing you how the common folk get along, and what the importance of the Harpers and music and history and all that stuff.
I love the Dragon books, but I absolutely adore the Harper Hall trilogy.
Yeah, I like the Harper Hall trilogy real well. I like them all.
Well, Robinton's impossible not to love.
Oh yeah,
as a character,
he's a hero. There's not much wrong with Robinton.
Yeah, when she wrote the book that came out in the 90s, I guess, it was in the 90s. Coming back to that world, not dropping back and writing, stuff that came before. That was a tough one to read.
When they're talking about the practice and the exacting nature of the practice of the music, that a harper has to do. When they're describing that, I found that interesting, and it made me think that Anne McCaffrey definitely has had a brush with classical music.
Yes, or a classical musician in her immediate family.
Yep.
Yeah,
hope.
It's like women authors who write male characters very well tend to find out that they had brothers with whom they were quite close or are quite close. And because of their observational abilities to capture the difference and the voice of men. Mm-hmm. Because men can write very poor female voices, and females can write very poor male voices.
Yes.
From lack of just sitting and listening to how people express themselves.
That was what I always loved about Ursula K. Le Guin. I just loved her characters.
Some people are just so gifted at character creation.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
They create characters that you just want to carry around with you and pull them out and have conversations with them.
David Eddings, the Belgariad, is the classic. He invents 5 characters you want to spend time with, and none of them are the star. Garion's the most boring thing in the whole book. The star of the book is the only one who's not interesting.
Well, is Arthur as interesting as the rest of his court?
No, absolutely not.
Right.
I mean,
the supporting players, the supporting actors are so much more entertaining.
So yeah, Eddings was a great example of that. I have a question for you guys. Just, do you get the feeling that the country is taking a look at the amalgamation of evidence that it's being confronted with, that things are not going well for us generally. And they're kind of looking around for somebody to blame, and that might just be the Democratic Party. Are you getting that feeling that that's happening? Because I am really beginning to suspect that the worthies at MSNBC and CNN are getting real scared about what may happen. They're thinking this is going to be 1994 all over again, I think.
Well, that would amuse the hell out of me.
Yeah, I have a copy of that electoral map somewhere. I like to bring it up occasionally.
Really, it's past happiness. You know, it's...
Did you mean 94 or 84?
Let's see.
I think what you want is full on Reagan versus Mondale.
No, he's talking about the contract with America.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about just
Newt
being
Gingrich.
routed.
I thought that was 94, wasn't it?
Yeah, contract with, for, and on America.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think they realized they're in a bad place in terms of the electoral situation, and they're trying to control the damage by only throwing Biden under the bus and probably Harris.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the plan. The problem is there's a certain, once you turn the angry mob loose, you don't know where else they're going to take their pitchforks and start poking at things.
Yes.
The amount, it's not like, you know, they can use the gamma knife to just cut away the problem with precision here. There's going to be a lot of collateral damage if they have to replace Biden on the ticket. Well, ultimately, it's just going to be a question of Joe deciding of his own accord and no other reason that he needs to spend more time with his family eating ice cream and not run for re-election.
One of the things clearly that is falling prey to this collateral damage is CNN. They're, I mean, things are not looking very good for them. They launched that CNN Plus, and they're getting maybe 10.
They're getting 1/8 of the viewership of Breaking Points.
Yep. It's something like 10,000 or fewer engagements.
Bunch of YouTubers.
Yeah.
Are beating them.
Yep. It's not. It's amusing to me because, you know, Chris Wallace raced over there. All, I'm going to be a big fish in this little pond over here. And splat.
Well, you and Jen Psaki can just circle back on each other. It'll be fun for you guys. Yeah, but there's a certain amount of stuff leaving CNN out of it that you just can't get away from. The harsh reality. Last week, I went to a restaurant, ordered the same things I've ordered many, many times before for the last couple of years. Usually comes out to $23 and some change. This time it was $33 and some change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one big price jump.
Did they make an error on the price that they
No. The prices have gone up. The prices for food in particular have gone way the hell up.
Yes.
Harry,
and you're starting to see...
Does that hurt poor people more than it hurts rich people?
Well, I mean, it hurts poor people more than it hurts everybody.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's obviously a very regressive sort of thing. It's like, well, we're just going to print a bunch of money and give it to the poors, and that'll be fine because that's like income redistribution. But the problem is that the side effects also affect the poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a lot of Democratic governors that are just looking for excuses to send checks to people. So in California, they want to send, I think it's a $400 check to people to help them pay for the expensive gas.
Right.
So that gas can go up more because they just sent $400 to people and they need to get it somewhere. So they'll pop another penny on that gas tax.
Yeah, it's infuriating to hear them talk about this. I was listening to, God, one of the stupid liberal news networks. They were talking about how because of they're bringing in all this tax money that they didn't expect to bring in, because of course the dollars are inflated, so that causes the taxes to go up. So they have all this money coming in. They're like, well, what can we do with it? Well, we could basically buy votes. The logical answer is to put it aside for a rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to just say, okay, well, sometimes tax revenues are high, sometimes they're low. Pay off your debt, put it in your emergency fund. Don't do something stupid with it. But they're desperate. They're more than happy just to buy votes. This is the precedent we've set, that if we just give money to people, they'll vote for us. But I don't think these checks are going to be enough, because the one restaurant I went to is just an example. There's a lot of stuff like that where reality is just creeping up on people. And suddenly there's going to be an aha moment where they go, wait a second, this is pretty messed up. And I don't think there's anything that the news can say. They can't blame it on Putin. They can't blame it on Trump. They can't blame it on anybody, because the buck stops with Joe, the inflated buck.
You're not wrong. You know, they can say, well, we had to do all this stuff because the Republicans had, but that isn't really true. If you look at the economic indicators, that the Republicans left the country in not terrible shape. If not for COVID, they're, we'd be flying. We'd be in amazing shape but we did several things that hurt us. And one of the things was giving huge amounts of cash away. The world sat there and looked at that and said, what the fuck? That's the currency that a lot of our own personal economy, even though we don't use that currency, depends on the integrity of. And the Americans have just cracked open the piggy bank, and all the coins are on the floor. What the fuck?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that I'm just going by. I can't speak to the international markets. I can just tell you what my lying eyes are telling me in person. And what I'm seeing is customers are having a hell of a time keeping even not just entry-level people, but sort of entry and mid-level people.
Yeah.
Whether this is just because people have thought about, well, do I actually have to do this? Maybe I want a different kind of life. Maybe different things are important to me. That's totally fine. Like I said, I know of some people, a couple of women who independently decided to work less or just quit their jobs because they wanted to go back to just being, raising their family.
Yep.
They decided, hey, I kind of like this thing where I'm around my family. We could just do without a second car, and I could just do this and take care of my kids. Perfectly valid choice, right? But I'm seeing a lot of men and women of all different ages, with and without kids, leaving. Because one of the, and one of my larger customers, one of the things that I get access to is the list of people that are quitting or getting fired. So I actually usually know a day or two in advance of most everybody else if somebody's planning on leaving or they're going to be informed that they're planning on leaving. So I can tell you, of my customer how many people are leaving, and I get a real sense of when the number goes up and down, and I can tell whether the position is being backfilled or not, so I know whether it was a reduction in force type of thing. So, what do my lying eyes tell me? My lying eyes tell me that there has been a pretty big shift. Now, whether this is just because there's a lot of money flowing around, or because people have there are long-term changes in people's attitudes toward work. What they're willing to put up with, what's important to them. I don't really know, based on my tiny sample size, what's going on, but I have definitely noticed it's hard to get mid-level people as well now and keep them. The level of discontent is just very high. That's the one thing I can say for sure. Sorry, that was a bit rambling, but
No.
I'm kind of formulating this in my head. I didn't actually plan this out.
Yeah. it's things have really. This is one of those times when things are changing. And there've been periods of my life where one day was pretty much like the last. This is not one of those times. This in this time frame, you never know what's going to happen the next day, and I really feel like this is a time of real change potentially. Of maybe the American people getting a little bit smarter, being a little bit more circumspect, a little less extreme. It's everybody has tried the balls to the wall ideologue. I hate you. You know, if you don't pass my purity test, I hate you. We did that. We did that for a few years. Now, I'm wondering if people are saying, you know, we really need to be adults and work some of this stuff out because things are getting worse. And Americans, when they notice things are getting worse, can sometimes surprise you with their industry and their resources to improve things.
Oh, your lips to God's ears.
Well, we have seen in the past, like with the Dust Bowl, whole generations or multiple generations of people affected adversely by single events that were dramatic enough. So you ended up with a whole bunch of basically poor white farmers who their kids didn't, grew up under assistance for years and years. And they did not retain their parents' phenomenal work ethic at all. So you still, to this day, see communities where there's a lot more poverty and lack of the people not pursuing education than they should be. It isn't, this isn't a racial thing. It's a class thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care about the color of people's skin. I can't stress enough how much I don't care about that. But in terms of class, poor is poor and ignorant is ignorant, and societal problems, people have to choose to get themselves out of those sometimes. Yep. I can't tell people what to do, but I can think about, well, what things motivate people to make better choices. And sometimes tough love requires not just handing stuff to people.
Well, that's what tough love always requires, is saying,
no,
we tried it the easy way. Now, why, oh, mofo. That's the thing about tough love is it's tough.
Yeah, well, there's a statistic here. I'm looking in my planning thing. This is something that Geode sent me. 35% of government-sponsored refugees in Canada are still on welfare after 10 years. That number seems high. But it doesn't surprise me all that much. 35%.
Only 35% are still on.
Of the ones that were privately sponsored, it's more like 25%. But, if you're going to bring in a bunch of people into your country, you would hope that people would not be on government assistance after 10 years. At least if your immigration policy makes any kind of sense.
Are refugees the same as immigrants?
Well, also, I just want to point out, this isn't necessarily about immigration status. I'm just talking about people that are kind of down on their luck financially in terms of what you give them. I just want to be clear that I'm not trying to take this, because I was talking about poor Native American, not Native American, American
Prospero,
citizens.
Refugees would be a subset.
No. Yeah. I am not talking about the legal definition.
Yeah.
I'm talking about their state of mind. Why they end up where they end up. Did they choose that, or was that the only avenue for them? See, immigrants, by and large, were people who chose to go to another country because they wanted to. Refugees can be new citizens of sheer convenience. or the proper use of white knights. Here we'll rescue you over here. Was it always their dream to come to the West? Was it always their dream to come to Canada? Was it always their dream to come to the United States? Or are they there merely because that's where they were most easily resettled, or the offers were made to resettle them? It's like the difference between quote unquote economic refugees that is being what's being described of the people crossing the southern border. I might use the term opportunists rather than refugees.
Yeah.
Because although a large number of brown people who cross the border are employed in one manner or another and are seeking employment and financial gain, there is a remarkable amount of attachment to home, sending the money home, that kind of thing. That is not fully embracing where you live, where you pick up and become a citizen of that country. You know, it's one thing to be an expat, but still call yourself or know that you still have the other home. Culturally and your sense of responsibility to the country in its entirety. And I just wonder about the attitudinal makeup.
I probably grabbed the wrong number. And the reason I grabbed that is because it was the only number I had to hand. And the point I was trying to make was that you have generational problems that occur because of large amounts of government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of these refugees or migrants or whatever, there are other factors that muddy the issue beyond, you know, just sort of domestic people. Like, I mean, I still can see in pockets of Central California the descendants of Dust Bowl people living on assistance and working the system, as, you know, for everything that it's worth.
Absolutely.
I would hope that the second and third generation of a lot of these refugees would be doing a lot better than the first generation, because it certainly is tough when you don't speak the language, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
But it's not a great system if you've got a third after 10 years. I mean, maybe that's just the number. Maybe that's all it. Maybe that's all it can be. But I just go ahead.
Part of what you need to realize is that a lot of the money that people get from government benefits in the United States, they don't consume that money. You realize that. They don't consume those resources. They send that money home. Mexico makes 4% of its GDP. A total of, in 2021, it was $51.6 billion. That's how much they received in remittances from the United States.
And not all of that.
$51.6 billion in cash.
And that's not all earned income.
No.
Any stretch of the imagination.
Not even close. You know, a lot of these people will come in, you know, live in some extremely inexpensive situation and be able to save half the money that they're getting, you know, from some kind of government assistance, and just send that home, and they'll just do it again and again and again and again.
Yeah, and it's not certainly not being discouraged by the countries that send them.
Oh, heavens no! Are you kidding? Do you know what $51.6 billion?
No, it's a lot of
American dollars does to Mexico's to stabilize their own currency.
Mm-hmm.
My God, that's insanely good for them.
Yep.
To receive that money. I mean, it shouldn't be happening. I mean, what you really want is to have the economic development occur in Mexico.
Why do that when somebody else will foot the bill?
Well, yeah, that's they're essentially using our stuff to make their money,
Hmm.
and then sending it home, or using the United States to obtain cash money and send it home. Anyway, I just thought it was worth bringing that up.
People used
Oh,
to send home for their families. They didn't used to just send the money home.
I can tell you it's a lot less abstract for somebody in California. I can go into more Latinx areas of the California
Hmm.
neighborhoods, and you immediately see signs in a lot of the convenience stores and uh, the bodegas and those types of places for wiring money to different countries, usually Mexico.
Hmm.
And they'll advertise what the rates are. So it's, El Western Union,
Yep.
how to basically send all that, money back.
Yeah, there's a if part. I guess what I was getting at is we used to have cultural assimilation as a goal of the people that immigrated. They were almost fanatical about it. In some cases, I'd say they actually were, and forbidding the old native tongue to be spoken by their children and things like that. You're an American now. You don't speak this language. We still talk to grandma because she is too old to learn the new language, or mom and dad can only learn the rudimentary because they're too busy. Because we didn't have social welfare. And honest to God, bodies really were not stacked like cordwood in the streets. To hear the hyperbole that if we were to pull the plug on any of the social welfare programs in this country, that people would starve. I tell you, they would starve. That they might now, actually, because of other economic factors, but they weren't then.
Well,
and also there were social aid programs set up to help these people, and people who succeeded in that community helped the people who were newly arrived in that community. But you still see those old neighborhoods in New York City. But what's the lingua franca?
I have a terrible meme for you.
Okay.
Along these lines, it's a bit much, but I think we'll get away with it.
Okay.
There's this group of people, who show up from Mexico, and they're like, La Raza, they talk about how wonderful Mexico is. You'll ask them about it, and they'll describe Mexico in the most poetic terms ever. That's why I sort of like this meme, even though there are too many words for it to be a good meme. Because it is a bit of a conflict, you're around folks and they just talk about Mexico like it's this paradise, and it's like, well, why don't you go back? I don't want to go back. Well, why won't you assimilate here? Well, why should I? La Raza. And I don't understand this whole thing. It's like, if you're going to come here, just embrace it. Become an American. Jump into the melting pot. It's fine. It's really nice. We're okay people.
We're actually a lot more welcoming than Mexico is.
Mm-hmm.
Try and immigrate to Mexico sometime. You probably can from the United States, particularly if you have like some kind of professional qualification. But if you're from say El Salvador
or Guatemala,
Guatemala, they don't welcome you. They don't care.
They have a wall on their southern border.
Yes.
Well, they actually have a big gate. They don't want the Hondurans just wandering into Mexico and claiming they're Mexican.
You know how a lot of Asians are racist to other types of Asians?
Hispanics are the same way.
Hispanics are often the same way. So, a lot of people moved up from Mexico into the U.S. and are well established, doctors, lawyers, the whole deal, the American dream, right? That's people from Mexico. Most of the people you see, Mexico's actually not so bad now in a lot of places. I mean, I know there's crime problems and drug cartels, and I get it. I'm not trying to diminish what's going on.
We have those too.
But a lot of what you see in terms of people who are doing a lot of the cheap labor. The really not particularly skilled craftsmen that they have slapping stuff together with architectural styrofoam and paint around California. Because there's a lot of, I mean, these people are cheap and they're kind of terrible in terms of the quality of the work that they do in a lot of cases. Because they're just hiring these cheap people and they're probably exploiting them and everything else. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just judging by the really poor quality of the work I've seen on many occasions. A lot of these people are from Guatemala.
Yep.
And El Salvador now. And so I think a lot of the people who are here from Mexico kind of look down on a lot of these folks. You know, because the last thing that they want is more immigration. It's sort of like you move to Texas, and then within about a month, you're like, I don't think any more Californians should be moving to Texas. It's like the door shut right behind them. You know, I made it. It's like getting into the store right before they close, you know, right before they lock the door, won't let anybody else in. That's the way they look at immigration. Again, I'm clumsily using my big paintbrush tonight.
Yeah, but there's validity to that. And there is a fair degree of hierarchy.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Assassin's comment about the ICE agent in this meme. Can you make this go away, Skep?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The you know, head east and ask Cubans what they think of Guatemalans or El Salvadorans, or what one group thinks. It's pretty amazing within the Spanish-speaking world, the degree of pecking order there is. I mean, there was some of that in, you know, in our immigration waves in the early part of the late 19th, early part of the 20th century, where pecking orders had to be established as to who was better than whom.
Well, I mean, all in all, if you look at people who come here from Mexico to California, at least, you're dealing with a lot of hardworking people, you know,
Yes.
decent, hardworking people, just, you know, generally pretty lovely for the most part. It's just, you know, not everybody's MS-13.
That's El Salvadoran to begin with.
But if you actually care about the people that are already here, you do not want unrestricted immigration coming over the border now.
No.
We're in a position at this point where things are pretty full and we should be picking and choosing which people are best for us. You know, so where there's a mutual advantage to letting people in, not just letting people in who come from all over the world, travel through Mexico, and then just want Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you get the feeling that the Democrats are realizing that they're going to have to do something about immigration, that it truly is broken, and they've got to do something more than just open the border? Because I get the feeling that they're at least beginning to say that.
Well,
you know, hearing the Biden administration come out and say, you know, Jen Psaki saying, we know immigration is broken, we know we have to fix it.
Well,
That was a big change.
It was a sea change in that regard. It doesn't hurt when the governor of Texas has or is intending to, and the governor of Florida is contemplating the same, of just packing people onto buses and sending them to DC and saying, you seem to have left something in my state that belongs to you. You resettle these people here where you live.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Of course, you can't force them to get on a bus. That's the governor does not have the authority.
No, you can't, but you
place
could
them on a bus and make them.
Why
leave.
don't you borrow the tactics of the NGOs that are luring them from Central America up here?
Yeah.
Well,
the paradise that is DC.
Well, you mean like Pueblo Sans Frontiers? There's one of the 4 big ones. Yeah. I mean, there's a racket going. These people, they're these legitimate, supposed, I mean, these in air quotes, legitimate charities that end up working with the coyotes to basically bring people over the border. You know, they're in bed with the bad people.
They're getting kicked back somewhere, honey.
Yeah.
And I want to know where.
Yeah, it's not good because they give these people instructions on how to basically use our own generosity and system against us.
Yeah. It's kind of like the fifth column.
Kind of like, yes.
Yeah, it's that exact same thing, because I mean what the communists talked about for ages was using our weaknesses against us.
This is interesting. This Pueblo Sin Fronteras, People Without Borders, is a project of La Familia Latina Unida, a Chicago, Illinois-based 501c4 illegal
Chicago.
immigration advocacy organization formed in 2001 by Elvira Ariano, an activist for immigrants living illegally in the United States. The organization is affiliated with the Chicago-based 501c3 pro-illegal immigration group Centro Sin Fronteras. Together, the organizations have been involved in organizing approximately 1,000 economic migrants from Central America to attempt to cross the U.S. and Mexican borders illegally since 2010.
Yeah. Operating out of Chicago. Aren't you stunned?
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely amazed. Chicago's renowned for its community organizers.
Strangely, this began at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
That doesn't surprise me either.
They were organizing day laborers near Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Fort Worth. That's where Pueblo Sin Fronteras was organized in 2009.
The Methodists have always been just a delightful hotbed of progressivism.
And that's just one group. That's just the one that I remember the name of, sort of, because I do not speak Spanish well. Harry does not have a facility for foreign languages.
Yeah, it's interesting they call it People Without Borders, because pueblos would be towns without borders. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's we live in interesting times. Anyway, I actually think that there's room for hope. I think that a good right cross to the Democratic Party in the midterms might jolt them into taking a more moderate, start turning away from the far left nutter parts of their party, and look for some solutions. Look to cooperate with the Republicans. The problem is, I think it will make the Republicans very bellicose and say, "Ha! We looked in the midterms. Wait till we put Trump back in the White House," and that's what they're going to do. Trump plans to run.
I know.
Trump will run. He's enough of a monomaniac, I would call him, where I think he would run as an independent, as a Ross Perot, Old Moose Party type, and with about as much success as TR had with the Bull Moose Party.
Except he'd screw it for the Republican.
Yeah, and he'd screw it for the Republican, screw it for himself, and he'd go down as,
and he would accept none of the blame for it.
Oh no.
It would all be the fault of those Republicans for not getting on board. He'd change his tune that quickly.
Yeah.
The problem with the Republicans is it's still the same group of people that didn't win last time in a lot of cases.
Yes, it is.
Mitt Romney.
I was just going to say Mitt Romney and his binders full of women. I don't know if we're going to get more people like your lieutenant governor, Prospero, or if we're going to end up with a lot of wet rhinos. For the new blood that they are bringing in.
Lindsey Graham.
Wet rhinos is what I'm afraid of. But yeah, our lieutenant governor, or our governor, who's slung his dick around and vetoed the most bills today, that he set is a little record for vetoing legislation that came.
What did he veto today?
Oh, 300 and some things.
Oh,
I
That's
haven't-
his running
okay.
total, yeah.
Yeah, he really went for it, and he added an amendment to one of the pieces of legislation that is going to basically force election on all school board members in Loudoun County, which of course is the subversion of democracy, according to everyone losing their minds, because we already have rules established and they're supposed to have blah blah many years, and I think basically, he is to some extent vacating their established.
It said Youngkin vetoed 25 bills that had, I'm reading from Washington Post, that had bipartisan support in the General Assembly, throwing sharp elbows, particularly at lawmakers who represent blue areas of Northern Virginia. Imagine my shock. For instance, he vetoed 9 of the 10 bills sponsored by Senator Adam P. Eben, D. Alexandria.
Yes.
While signing identical House bills in 6 of those cases. Typically, a governor signs both versions, allowing both sponsors bragging rights for getting a bill passed into law. Longtime state legislators said they could not think of a case in which a governor signed one bill and vetoed its companion.
Yeah, Eben said
all Democrats are pissed.
Oh yeah, and Eben's furious. He said this is entirely because he was trying to block somebody as a cabinet appointee. And it very well may be. Well, you were being petty. He's being petty back. It happens. Get over it. This is politics. No one acts like a grown-up. It's really underneath all the gloss of shiny walking sticks and cravats of the old days. Partisan politics is partisan politics.
Yeah, this guy, Youngkin, he vetoed 25 bills. Democrat Ralph Northern vetoed 20 bills and amended 60 in 2018. And Terry McAuliffe vetoed 10 and amended 57.
Yeah, this is the most since Gilmore, I think.
Yeah, but it's not that much more than
it's not quite that terrible.
25 versus 20. It's not the end of the
It's
world.
just got everybody wound up. And it's just hilarious because, of course, the Loudoun County people are going all to pieces. And, of course, all the Democrats that support the Loudoun County people are going all to pieces.
What I love is that Youngkin, on philosophy, vetoed every single bill that called for a study.
Good. Good. All that is a circle jerk and a taxpayer wasting taxpayers' money.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised. I mean, I would like to see more governors go duplicative, because so much legislation is duplicative or is creating a parallel agency with an agency that already has.
You'll like this one. One of the things that one of the bills that he vetoed was sponsored by Luke Torian, Democrat from Prince William County, and would have required the state to conduct a study every 5 years to ensure agencies were using diverse small business suppliers. The original bill passed the House 77-23 and the Senate 36-3. And here's what your governor said: taxpayer dollars should not be used to highlight the failings of previous administrations. Youngkin wrote in his veto message. The Commonwealth is under new management. The time for action is now.
Yeah, really. Take your study and shove it up your ass.
I just love that.
Most of those studies are like administrative
Wow.
boondoggles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Not if you get paid to do studies.
of course not. Just like if you paid to, to vomit out research that, in quotes, research that somebody wants a certain result.
Well, Eben replied back that Governor Youngkin revealed the governor to be a bitter partisan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like some Democrat from Alexandria isn't a bitter partisan. Somebody had responded to them basically with boo-hoo, cry more. You know,
Mhm.
you lost the state house. Sorry, you lost the governor's race, and you lost it handily. And you're just bitchy because you thought you were going to have the old bandwagon days of Terry McAuliffe greasing the wheels for all of you fuckers.
Mhm.
Didn't happen. Another repudiation of a Clintonite. Kiss our grits.
Fair enough.
They just can't stand that because, you know, I don't care how much people are like, well, Terry McAuliffe was governor before. Yeah, and he was a Clintonite then. The only reason he was elected governor is he had Clinton connections.
Yep.
He's about as much from Virginia as that smiling chiclet mouth prick Mark, what's his face, who's one of our senators. God damn it, what's his name? Mark Warner.
Oh, Mark Warner.
That dickhead. He's a Northeasterner.
The guy who got elected to the Senate just because he looks like a senator. Pretty sure that Mark Warner looks like a senator as opposed to look. He's kind of like John Kerry.
I know
Tim senatorial look.
Tim Kaine looks like somebody accidentally let him into the building. You know,
yeah, he's a homeless guy down the street.
Yeah, well, he looked that way when he was governor. He's always been. I remember when Queen Elizabeth visited for the oh my God, when the hell was Kaine governor? It may have been for the quadrennial of Jamestown.
Yeah.
And there was a picture taken of that jackass giving these big thumbs up and making a goofy face behind her as she's walking ahead of him. And it was just like, oh God, who let the ass clown into the building? You know, it was just the kind, you know, they were always on and on about what a schlub Trump was. You know, ill-bred, ill-mannered piece of trash wandered into the White House. And it's like, this dickhead is the governor of Virginia and he can't comport himself. He apparently also put his hand on Prince Philip's knee when speaking to him. You don't touch royal personages ever. You know, I mean, it's just your protocol officer was probably already hanging herself.
Yeah.
Goodness.
But yeah, I was very proud of the Commonwealth. Terribly, terribly proud of the Commonwealth.
Do you know what that Terry McAuliffe guaranteed the mortgage on Bill and Hillary Clinton's home in Chappaqua?
Yep.
He guaranteed their mortgage.
Yep.
He co-signed the note.
Because they were poor after leaving the White House, don't you know?
Had to help those kids get started, you know.
Look, he raised $275 million for them back in the day.
Selling the Lincoln bedroom.
That was before Bill Clinton was elected president. I mean, he goes back with the Clintons.
Oh, yes, he does.
And he raised a bunch of money. He raised $1/3 of $1 billion back when $1 billion was a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I just detest McAuliffe. I was so. I mean, I honest to God, a circus fire eater could have been running against McAuliffe, and I would have voted for them. Just simply,
McAuliffe is just
that is the degree to which I despise McAuliffe. We're never going to, thanks to Northern Virginia.
He's an utter idiot.
Get rid
I promise you that.
Our senators. We're never going to get rid of our senators. Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. And, oh, God, Tim the Schnauzer. It was, God, that debate between him and Pence was so funny. There was one adult in the room and a very ill-mannered go-to-ground dog.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on just how bad the Dems are getting. I wouldn't take I wouldn't take anybody's safety for granted at this point.
What do you mean?
I mean, politically.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that it's just hard to judge what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, it is.
You know, a lot of the parental stuff has really just gotten people's attention.
Yeah.
That's what they, a large enough number of people said that turned the tide for them in Virginia. That, I mean, even traditional, like mainstream Democrat friendly press were reporting it. Because
people are going to make them take a side. That's what's going to happen. And they're not going to be able to get away from it because this upcoming election is not going to be like other elections in the past. What you're going to be seeing more of is people just pinning down politicians and forcing them to take a side on stuff that they would just as soon not have any position on at all.
Well, also DeSantis is getting so much national attention for, you've got certain lobbies that are absolutely furious about don't say gay bill, which is not what the bill is, but that's fine. Keep calling it that. It's actually going to help your opposition. People paid attention to that. The Loudoun County stuff caught attention outside of the Virginia borders. A fair bit of school grooming nonsense is catching attention outside of state borders. And then you have a Supreme Court, now a Supreme Court justice, say that they could not, because they were not a biologist, define what a woman was. Now,
yeah, because she's a coward.
You're a judge. Unfortunately, part of your job at times is actually making those kinds of definitions because of rights conflicts or other matters that come before the court.
Yeah, I'd love to see her handle patent reform if she can't even figure out the difference between boys and girls.
Yes. It's
that's a fair question. I was sort of surprised that they didn't go down more into the Title IX stuff. I would have liked to have asked her the question, for purposes of Title IX, how would you determine a person's eligibility for protection under that statute? Since it is specifically to, and it's defined in that
the
law
statute, yeah.
To protect women.
Yeah, you have violence against women bills that everybody gets all worked up about, that usually contain incredible poison pills.
How will you determine whether or not this applies to them if you cannot define that set of people to whom these statutes, these rules, these regulations have to apply?
Hey, you've created a protected class without any criteria that you can use to objectively determine if somebody's in the class or not.
Then everyone belongs to it. And because
or nobody does.
Well, because now consider this. We do not have rape statutes in this country, to my knowledge, certainly not on the federal level, that use the term forced envelopment. So women cannot be charged with rape. They're charged with all kinds of sexual battery or that kind of thing, but they're not charged with rape. Wait till the first arrested individual for the crime of rape, who is a male, says, I'm not a male.
You're right. Only in Kansas.
Yeah.
Is there
a forced development clause?
Yeah, and they don't call it that, but they just say that a woman can rape a man.
Yeah. This is how kind of behind the times we are when there have been egregious assault cases against men involving sexual crimes committed on them by women that included penetrative sex, because a machete was being held to the guy's throat and all she had to do was giddy up horsey.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the arguments I heard was, well, God, he had a hard on. Yeah, you don't understand what a fear response is, do you?
Well, women report orgasms when they get raped. They're not having a good time, but
yeah, I mean, we're talking about
physiological.
We're talking about nerve stimulation, and
right.
we're also talking about certain biological response to fear can occur.
Right.
So knock it off with that nonsense. We're not into the mechanics of the body at the time. We're talking about the violence of the crime.
And, hey, all I did was bring up that young black guys in America aren't listening to the blues as much. I mean, a relatively safe topic compared to this one.
Well, no, but I mean, from a standpoint of equal justice under the law and under the 14th Amendment, I would like to see men be able to charge a woman with rape. I think we are well past this nonsense that the feminists seem to maintain, that they can be a protected class and victimizers and blameless. It's nonsense. I mean, gender-based, all a guy has to do is go, I don't identify as a man. That was a female penis.
Well, the problem with all these laws is focusing on the gender of the person involved is not the issue.
But it is.
The question is, what is the actual harm that was done to somebody?
Correct.
So in the case of the women, they have a lot more specific risk that's specific to them. So depending on a lot of the behavior that's involved in a lot of details, you can talk about whether something is more or less injurious, and it has nothing to do with, is the law being applied fairly, right? That's a separate conversation. But instinctively, in the small animal part of our brain, we have this sense of what's right and wrong. And there's a reason why we put more emphasis on protecting women than on men.
Of course.
Right? I mean, it's there. So this sense that we have of what's right and wrong and what's just is sort of in conflict with the idea that we want to apply the laws uniformly. Yes, we probably should apply the law uniformly, even though in many cases it's not as injurious to the male. And I said in many cases, there certainly are ways that it could be much worse for a male and not nearly as bad for a female. But we can't get into a discussion of, the 100,000 different ways that somebody can be sexually assaulted and what the damage is, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of effort to figure this out. If you took 100 randomly selected people and shoved them in a room, they could probably come up with a pretty decent set of laws and punishments in an afternoon. I think most people basically know that it's wrong and it's terribly wrong, and that these people should be punished pretty severely in some cases. I don't think you'd see a lot of disagreement.
But they aren't, because of how statutes are constructed, and that's my complaint.
Yeah. We have to make them uniform because there's a bigger principle here.
Yeah, then either drop using rape as a charge and it all be sexual assault, and then it is you're then looking at injury base or potential injury.
Yeah, the problem is this inherent sense of justice is in opposition to what our frontal lobes is telling us needs to happen. So you say, oh, you really need to do this thing. And everybody goes, yeah, I know we need to do this. But the part they're not saying is, I'm just not feeling it. The motivation is lacking, even though intellectually people know that, yeah, absolutely, we should prosecute these things exactly the same way, because it's about deterrence, right?
Yes.
We don't want anybody to get assaulted. It isn't as much about punishment as it is deterrence. So if you over-punish somebody a little bit on something as terrible as what we're talking about, I can live with that.
Yes.
So throw the book at them. Who cares? Screw them. Throw them in jail.
Well, because of them stealing someone's sense of safety, personal safety, etc., and threatening grievous bodily harm while they were doing it. They belong in prison for as long as any rapist, in my opinion, that does the exact same thing.
There's so many different ways they can cause lasting harm.
Oh yeah, I understand that, and even not even looking at the harm calculation per se in this, it's just
you've got a couple of things going on. When criminal law is about having hard and fast rules in place. If you break those, here are the sentencing guidelines. Basically, you get convicted of that beyond a reasonable level of doubt. Here is how you'll be sentenced. Civil law is different. It's about calculating levels of harm, and the punishment, the award, to the plaintiff from the respondent, which is effectively what happens with a victim and a criminal in a civil case that's based on a criminal act. It's easier to prove the harm, and the standard of proof is not as high, and but it's important to remember it's a separate thing from the criminal act. And the hard thing is what I'm trying to get to. The hard thing is how hard it is to hammer into statute form firm and fast laws that articulate when a citizen has breached the law, has broken the law.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we've done a good job of that. I think our laws are in terrible shape about that.
Well, we also have, God, I think we also probably have too many jury trials.
Katanji's going to sort it all out. It's going to be fine.
Well, we have a lot of jury nullification that goes on, and juries are not properly and roundly humiliated and embarrassed for doing so. I know that it's very difficult to impanel juries. People don't want to do their jury duty. They don't want to be there. But when people play fast and loose with the facts of cases and the meanings of words, all to basically nullify they're disregarding the instructions they were given. They're disregarding their sworn duty as jurors. They're doing all kinds of things, and they're getting away with it.
Should we go over to the French mode? Have the judge be the prosecutor and jury?
No. I don't want to get rid of the adversarial system of prosecutor and defense for the accused. I would like to see some way that it would be made more clear that jury nullification is bad, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just far too much of it going on. And it's just grotesquely...
Darn First Amendment thing.
Yeah, that darn First Amendment thing and that darn nature of impaneling juries.
I would need to see specific cases before I would agree with you. I generally think that the government has such a disproportionate amount of power when it comes to the legal system that anything... I would not want to see us try to get rid of one of the few advantages that the little guy actually still has.
Problem is he's not getting a jury of his peers. Generally what shows up for juries. I mean, in some cases they are, but it's
the dumbest folks in town.
Oh,
I told you about my run with jury duty recently.
The ones that couldn't get out of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the instructions that they gave were ridiculous. I was disqualified several different ways. They literally, it was a traffic accident. The person, and they wanted to exclude from the jury anybody who had even the tiniest amount of technical knowledge.
Or had ever seen a car.
They were literally asking this one person about their junior college physics class.
Oh yeah, because they didn't want anybody knowing anything about vectors if it was an.
Oh God, no. They didn't want anybody, and they didn't want anybody who knew anything about simulation software. They didn't want anybody who had ever been in an automobile accident, or knew anybody who'd been in an automobile accident.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just, by the time they got through with it, this jury is not going to be representative of anything.
Were you speaking of the prosecution or the defense in that matter?
I'm talking about the judge's instructions to the people that were being impaneled.
Oh, that's absolutely retarded. That's way too much judge insertion. That should be for voir dire.
Yeah.
You know, that, I mean, unless the attorneys have gotten so stupid they don't understand how to do voir dire.
Well, again, this is just what my lying eyes were telling me.
No, I understand.
And I was just thinking, you know, it's going to be it's going to be a really short conversation, because for me to even answer the questions that they were asking them, I would end up prejudicing the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like I literally couldn't. I'm just sitting here thinking, I actually really don't want to be asked these questions, because I could get in trouble just for answering them honestly.
Yeah, and also sometimes I'm like, why don't you just, Your Honor, ask if there is anyone here that really doesn't consider themselves sentient?
Yeah, well, one of the things was, I guess this person who was the victim here, who was, you know, this was a civil case, obviously. The victim in this accident was being treated by chiropractors.
Oh dear.
And so they wanted to know if anybody had any sort of would not listen to a chiropractor and consider them to be an expert. Where would you like to begin in this conversation?
Yeah. I think it's all bullshit.
But I still think jury nullification is probably a good idea. Because I mean, they're getting back to the rape thing. I mean, there are Romeo and Juliet cases where I would just nullify the hell out of them. There are drug cases where I would nullify them. There are a lot of cases where I would nullify. And there's a reason why you have a jury of your peers, and I think jury nullification is probably a pretty healthy thing. If you have examples that you want to bring up and then say, well, in this specific case, it's wrong, I could probably be persuaded. But
yeah, jury nullification is a knife that cuts both ways.
Yeah.
And you know, you may like it when it runs your way. You won't like it when it runs the other way.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I look at it is, you don't have to like the laws, but they are the laws, and you were told to sit there and apply those laws as a juror. I mean, if you're taking your jury duty to heart, when you swear that you are going to do your duty, when you nullify based on, I don't like that law, you're violating. You're violating
being the oath. A good steward.
You violated the oath that you just swore.
That's exactly right.
I tried to get off a drug case by raising my hand when the question was asked if anybody had favored legalizing heroin, and I still got stuck on the fucking case. I didn't like the law. I like less what the penalty would have been, which we were not informed of. I found out from the defense attorney later. And I am not terrifically upset that this guy walked. He is not a known heroin dealer. He sold a dime bag to someone one time because they begged him to get it. And he went to another place, got it, and sold it. He was a weed dealer primarily. And he would have done 10 years mandatory. And that's horrible. But I couldn't nullify because the goddamn law sucks.
By the way,
I totally would nullify if I thought the law sucked. And I think that's why. If you can get 13 people to, a majority of them to agree that the law is an ass, I think I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, but
and I can think of lots of hypotheticals where I would want to see it nullified in spite of the fact that the law is an ass. It's not that the law is necessarily wrong. It's just that the application of the law in that particular case, the jury might choose to nullify. And I think it's a good safety, especially if the government is, the one that's, forcing the prosecution.
Yeah, I get again, there you go with it. It's a two-edged sword.
Yeah. Which is why we can have a conversation about it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there, Skep. I know you're going to tell us it's 10:30 or whatever.
Oh, well, it is 10:30. Yeah, or whatever it is.
Or
12:30.
1:30 in my time zone.
Yeah.
Thank you for ever acknowledging East Coast time there, Mr.
Yeah.
California Pants.
Left coast is the best coast.
My aching butt.
I hope it snows again for you.
Fuck you. Your weather's lovely, but your politicians are absolutely insane. I've got a governor that vetoes stupid shit. Ha,
We
ha.
have better Mexican food, though.
Okay. That doesn't change the fact that your governor's a lunatic.
Oh, no, but he's got great hair.
And what are those taxes like there, buddy?
They're really great.
Yeah. Very
Prospero
progressive
was
for all that
perfect.
Mexican food.
I should get... No, there's good and bad things about everything.
Oh, there are. Absolutely. I'm up to my ass in pollen.
You're up to your ass in pollen, and I'm probably looking forward to your 100-degree heat with 100% humidity, too.
Yeah. I don't quite live in Houston, but
Yeah, no, we don't get the humidity they get down there, thank God.
Yeah, I made a summer trip to D.C. one time on business, and that was unpleasant.
yes. DC
Hot
is
in hell.
Not nearly as nice as the winter trip I made, where it was the first snow of the year, and it was like in December. That was actually a really great trip. I pride myself on, whenever I do business travel, eking as much enjoyment as possible out of it. I've never gone anywhere that I didn't manage to find something good. Even when I had to go to Fort Walton Beach in the off season, I at least managed to find the best key lime pie I could get my hands on.
off season, meaning the heat of summer.
Off season meaning winter right after a tropical storm.
Oh, in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Okay,
Yeah.
right. I consider their off season to be summer.
Yeah, well, the tropical storm that blew through had meant that not only was everything that would be closed, everything else was closed because they just battened down the hatches for the
Yeah, oh, yeah.
tropical storm. Rent a kayak? No, that's not going to happen.
But key lime pie, excellent.
Key lime pie is one of the apex desserts, in my opinion.
It is. I'm going to have to tell you off the show about a fabulous place that does a really interesting key lime pie.
I like it.
Yes.
That's the key to the lime pie.
Exactly.
It certainly is. And you've spent 2 hours of your life listening to us prattle on, and I want to thank you for joining us, and thank my panel, my trusty friends Prospero and Harry, for joining me here for a couple of hours this evening. Thank you, chat, for coming out and watching us. We do this for you. And we'll be back to do it again next week. But for tonight, the zoo is closed. Good night, everybody.